Okay, with Andrew Laurie, director and star of the documentary film Dippers of the Altai 4, Emergence of the Chicks. It's a standalone film. I really enjoyed it. Everybody else enjoyed it from our festival. But I'm assuming this is the fourth installment of the Dippers of the Altai.
Yes, it's the fourth installment, and it's the longest, and it was the most exciting. That's why I put it in for the festival.
What was the first? What year did you make the first one?
2017.
Okay.
I used to work in Mongolia, and I was working as a wildlife conservation biologist. But the Dipper work was really alongside my official work, which was more talking with local government officials about conservation and national park management. But I was intrigued because the dippers were visible in the winter, but nobody, not even the ornithologists in Mongolia, seemed to know where they nested in the summer. And it was a childhood really obsession of mine, this species. I had done a project on them in England when I was at school. And so I got hooked on them. I started off just taking pictures, and then I started taking video. And it grew from there. First year was just the building of the nest, and then the next year was the incubation of the eggs. And every year we found something different from the behavior of the dippers in the UK and Europe.
And what is your experience making films before you started the first one in 2017?
None. I'd never made a film.
And so you
I'd
just
seen other people filming, but I hadn't. I'd never made a video at all myself.
am I so basically you're in your 60s. Is it fair for me to say you're when you made your first film?
Yes, I was.
Sorry, I could cut that out. I just want to give
Well,
people
I
context.
was in my when I was 70 in 2020, yes.
Yeah.
So I was in my 60s. Yeah.
So tell me about that experience of making, like, this is your fourth installment, so I'm assuming the first three installments went well. But that's pretty ambitious that you decided, okay, because you said you're taking pictures, you're almost like investigating I'm sure you did some writing about it. So what kind of motivated you to make your first film?
It was really by chance. I was taking pictures, and I had bought a camera, a nice camera, and I suddenly realized that it had a video function on it. And so I started taking video really opportunistically, just because it was there.
Yeah.
And I didn't have really good lenses that year because you can't just go out to a store and buy them. As you saw on the film, it's a 3-day drive out to where the dippers are.
Hmm.
And so the next year I bought some better equipment, and I set about planning some video. And I had a friend in the UK who helped me with the editing, but he was really sitting beside me editing, and I didn't really catch on what he was doing. I selected the shots that I wanted
Gotcha.
to put in, and he helped me put them together. But he was way ahead of me, and I didn't really learn enough to be able to do the editing myself. And it wasn't until COVID 2020 that I had time to really sit down and learn how to do video editing. And so the final two films and this one in particular, were done they were done all by me. The third and fourth one were done by me.
So you mean done by you? You mean you did everything? You shot the
I
film.
did everything. I shot it. I went out to the field, shot it, planned it, and wrote the script. I got help with translation of the Mongolian subtitles because there's Mongolian subtitle versions of these,
Hmm.
and I've had help with that, and I've had help from online tutor on the video as well, because I learned as much as I could just by buying the software and following it. But during COVID, I got help with an online tutor, a
Like
former
for the, like
BBC.
from assuming Adobe, you took a class.
Sorry?
Like the Adobe editing software, you took a class. Like you took it, like someone kind of mentored you.
I first of all took a class, and then I one-on-one.
God, yeah,
So I
yeah.
had both. Yes.
So you had a consultation, a mentorship kind of thing, which is
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
yeah,
And that was really helpful. I guessed at the beginning it was going to be, and what I needed help with was some of the technical things with the video,
yeah.
the soft Final Cut Pro I used.
Okay, Final Cut Pro.
And I learned quickly that that wasn't what he was mainly interested in getting me to think about. He was much more interested, and rightly, in getting me to think about the structure and the story
Hmm.
and the way that I could improve the next year's film. This was
Hmm.
the third to fourth, because we were doing the third. He helped me with the
Gotcha.
third,
Well, from
and
my experience,
how he helped me
I was
with
gonna say, from my
the
experience, he sounds like a great teacher because he's teaching you storytelling, not just the technical.
yes. I tried first of all with one or two online. You can find plenty of people who are willing
Sure.
to do it, but the first couple were really just didn't grab me. It was all just do this, and you can do clever things with the software, but it wasn't really thinking about the structure of the film. And that's what really got me much more interested in it. And I spent a long time working on the film.
So you learned, so when, okay, so for this particular film, because obviously COVID becomes part of the film as well, because you're
Yes.
talking about your personal, you told it from your personal journey. So I'm assuming you've seen plenty of documentaries where there's different types of storytelling, but when did you decide to like, I'm going to be the main character? I'm going to tell a first person story of my perspective of this world of these chicks.
Well, that was during, and it came out of conversations with this tutor, that you can just show the birds and on, just showing the birds with a voiceover, but it's so much more interesting for the audience if they can see day-to-day events. And actually, what happened to the third film, I had already shot it, but I was getting help with the editing, because the first film was shot just before COVID, and I hadn't done a lot of things. So some of the, you haven't seen the third film, but for shots in the tent and things like that, I had to mock it up, and it was through him. He helped me. Put a tent in your house and pretend you're there, and this kind of
Yeah.
thing taught me how that was an important part of the film, to get the interludes of, say, this is what we've found at this place, and now we're going to go to another place. I should send you the third film if
You
you're ever
should.
interested.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
should. Definitely. I want okay, so in this particular film, yeah, because they all kind of seem to come together. There's a lot of meticulous footage of especially the bird, the chicks, of like doing different things like going in the water. Like I'm assuming you just stayed there all day and just kind of like,
Yes,
yeah,
I stayed there all day, and you can't just set up a camera and point it at the water. You have to be there. Some people say, "Oh, why don't you just set up the camera and go away?" But you can't do that unless you're very focused on a nest box or something
yeah.
like with birds. But you have to be there, and I did. I went out there and really sat there from morning till evening. Well, there's certain times of day when they're not so active, so one could go away. And one of the most important things was I wanted to get them coming out of the nest, and they could have come out of the nest at any time. And so it was important to have coverage from morning till evening during the 4 or 5 days when they were emerging.
Yeah, it's amazing. The things that you captured is amazing. One funny thing that I have to mention is that you're shooting yourself, shooting the camera. So that means you need a second camera to shoot yourself shooting the camera, right?
Yes. I had an iPhone.
Okay, gotcha.
I had an iPhone set up on
Yep,
a tripod just just beside me.
gotcha.
This last year, 2023, I went again because I wanted to follow up on this really strange behavior, which we still don't have an explanation for. And I've asked a lot of ornithologists the behavior of pecking the adults standing on the back of the chick and pecking the head and even riding the chick. You saw that bit when it
Mhm.
rode the chick up the bank. And I wanted to see that again. And so well, not this year, last year, 2023, I actually had another camera. One of my team, she had a camera in the first year, but the second, no, 20 in that film, she had a small camera, but it wasn't video. But this 2023, she had a video camera, and so she was actually shooting shots of the same bird from different angles so that we
Yeah.
can get a switch of angle. And so we've gone a bit further
So,
every year with the equipment.
so what are they doing? You don't know? You haven't figured it out yet?
Haven't figured it out because last year, 2023, we didn't see it. We didn't see that behavior. And it's probably because we were unlucky with the emergence at different places. They don't emerge at exactly the same date on every year. They
Yeah.
it depends on the season, the weather, and the food supply.
Mhm.
Although we were there when they were young on the river in the same kind of state, the same age. But one of the places was that we were there in 2023 was much more wooded, and it was more difficult to follow them all the time. So that's still something I want to do. I'm not going this year, but I'm planning to go again next year. This year I'm going to make a film of what we did last year, but I'm including interviews with ornithologists, asking them about
Gotcha.
what they think about that. Tried to build up something because otherwise I went last year, tried to find what was going on and failed. It doesn't really make a film. I don't know what you think. Does it?
Well, it depends on how you, it's all about storytelling, right? So,
Yes.
yeah, it can make a film. You want to know my theory why the birds do that?
Right.
Because they know that humans are watching them and they're just trying to confuse you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Because I have a theory that birds are like the smart. They're smart and they just laugh at us because they've been
Yeah.
around for billions of years and they know that we've been around for 200,000 years and we're maybe 100,000 years left in us and
Yes.
and
Or
they're
less.
flying
Or
above
less. Yeah.
and we created this artificial life that drives them crazy and like this
Ah,
human obstacles, right? And they're like these humans are like they're these crazy humans.
yeah.
They're just laughing at us because they know they're going to be around a lot longer than we will.
Well, I should come back and interview you for my film because I need all kinds of opinions in the film.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I have a professional point of view. It's just how I look at things.
No, but I could have a non-professional point of view as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I
No,
haven't quite decided the range of people I'm going to have here.
because that's all I always look as I live in like suburbia and I always look at and we have a bird feeder. I love the bird
Yeah.
feeder. Like just they come and they always like I always look above and I just think that they're laughing. I truly believe that they're just laughing at us because they're
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we're like good people, I guess, and we're learning who they are. But I think they're more annoyed by us than anything.
Well, we have birds they're robins, they're British robins. They're different from yours over there. But they hang around when we're digging in the garden or raking or weeding, and they're just picking up the grubs and the earthworms that we uncover. They look like they're just making us work. Come on, and they call when we stop. They say, "Come on, let's get on with it."
So what was you talked about like you did a thing about it at school. Why do you think you're fascinated with the birds?
Well, I got into it really through one of my biology teachers at school, and he was already fascinated with it, with the species, and he still is, and he's been studying them for 60 years. And I visit him every year in northern England and go out with him looking at the dippers there. So I kind of inherited it. But I like rivers, and these birds are they're very attractive in the way that you can see them along the river. They dive into the river, they come out, and you can follow them until they reach the end of their territory, and then they come back. And it's the juxtaposition of them and the river, and the noise of the river and their noise above it, and their dipping behavior. And I just was fascinated by them. And during my work as a biologist in different countries around the world, I've always looked out for them. And this was the first time I started to film them, because it was always rather distant and I wasn't actually living next to them. But in Western Mongolia, where I was living, in the winter, they arrived this is going forward again now,
Hmm.
but around about on the edge of the city I was living in. And Mongolia is very cold in the winter, down to about -40. And these birds would sit on a long it wasn't a hot spring, it was just a spring, but it was coming out at about 0 degrees centigrade, but it would flow for about 1 kilometer before it froze solid. And that kilometer of river was the only bit of unfrozen water for in the area. And so there were 17 dippers, up to 17 dippers on this little stretch of river during the winter.
Hmm.
But then as the weather got better, they dispersed. And so my experience with dippers as a child led me, I knew that they were going out to find breeding areas, and they would need about 500 meters or 1 kilometer of river each, as each pair to
Yeah.
nest in. So I knew they must be nesting up in the surrounding hills. And it was one of the professors of ornithology professors of zoology, an ornithologist who was a professor of zoology in Ulaanbaatar University, who knew that I was interested in this. And after I had left Mongolia, living full time in Mongolia, he sent me a picture. I've just found a picture. I think we found where the dippers nest, and it was a picture of a dipper with a leaf in its beak, showing really that it was going to build a nest. And that's the place I went back to in 2017. When I was in Mongolia on an assignment. I wasn't living there, but I had gone there for work.
Yeah.
And that's where I found the first nest and started filming. And so it was always looking back at my experience. And recently I gave a lecture and showed the film back at the place where I first got interested in dippers and made the first study for my school project.
So your job, you're a professor, you're a university professor?
I wasn't a university professor. I was a wildlife conservation biologist and advisor.
Okay.
And I was first of all doing research in the Galapagos and in China and in Nepal and Tanzania on rhinos, marine iguanas, pandas. And then I switched to doing advice for national governments on wildlife conservation. And I worked in that capacity in Tanzania and in Mongolia and in China and in Vietnam and various places, India. And it was during that work in Mongolia, that I got close to the dippers.
Gotcha.
But I'm
Well,
also in China.
it seems like you lived a pretty great life. I'm like, I want to do a film about your office right now. Because it seems like your office has got like, it seems like there's a story to tell. There's multiple stories to tell there in the background.
That's a bit messy,
Yeah. Though it's got character. I call it character.
really. There's a lot of books and
Yeah.
there's an old computer and there's some binoculars somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, it's totally no, I love it. It's have you written a book?
I haven't written a book, no, and maybe I should because I've really I've although I've been self-employed for all my career really, but I'm not doing so much. I really I take on jobs if I can, but I'm doing some voluntary work in locally. So I do have time to write a book now. It's just a matter of deciding what and the audience. I suppose it's a bit like film.
Yeah. I
I
think
don't
it's
want to
exactly
make a
like film.
book that
Probably a little bit
nobody's going to
harder,
read.
one would assume.
Yeah.
So you have a PhD, right? What's your PhD in?
My PhD is in zoology. I did my PhD on the greater one-horned rhinoceros in Nepal and India in
Wow.
1972. And there was a film made of me there by a television company, Anglia Survival. So I have that.
What year was
But
that?
1975, the
Yeah.
year of the film was.
So 49 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like and then did you ever think when you're doing that documentary in 1975 that you would make your own eventually 42
No,
years
I
later?
didn't know. No, I didn't. Not at all. Yeah.
So how come you're not going back this year?
Well, various things. I I haven't finished the film that I did last year, and I had some family things. My mother had a stroke, and although she's recovering, and I just felt like a year in the UK for summer, not just packing up and going and doing that. Just take it slowly. I can go next year.
So
So
doing the math, your mom must be in her 90s, and
she's 100 last week,
she's
last
100.
month.
That's amazing.
Last
Oh my
month,
God. And she's
yeah,
recovering from her stroke?
yeah, she is. She she's recovering pretty well. She lost her speech,
Yeah,
but now it's coming back, and she's able to communicate. She's able to write a bit, but it's not like it was before. But
sure.
she's she even stood up and gave a speech as much as she could at her 100th birthday party last month.
That's amazing. Well, that's like the century. That I think that if you hit the century mark, that's pretty amazing, right? So 1924. So she's seen
Yes,
depression, the war, World War. She was
the
very
war.
present,
Yes, yeah,
teenager during World War II, right? So
yes, yeah,
that's a life.
yeah. And my father died at age 98, but that was 5 years ago. But she met him during the war and they got married, and just their life is quite different from ours.
Seems like you got some good genes though. Like so you got like 10 more films in you then.
I don't know, but I don't want to give up. I'm carrying on. I was a little bit slow to start the film that I filmed for last summer, partly because it took a long time to catalog everything. I think I'm making a mistake in shooting too much
Yeah,
and then having to go through it all, which takes a long time. I should be a bit more restrictive in if I'm shooting something which I've had similar shots before, then maybe don't do it rather than have
well,
to.
there's another school of thought, basically shoot as much as you can, then find someone to collaborate with and edit it and find an editor to collaborate with.
Yes. Yeah,
Have a
that's it.
different point of view.
No. And this year we had two cameras as well, so that's doubled the work.
Yeah. So you know, like so yeah, it's a collaborative medium. Sometimes it's good to have a good another set of eyes on it. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I know it's about money and finding the right person, but you come from a from a country of some pretty amazing, talented people. They're late teens, early 20s, who would love to work
Yes,
with you for free.
yes. Yes, they might do.
They would for the
But I think
experience. So
they would go with me, but they're not so keen on looking through stuff here for free, I don't think.
yes, they are. Yeah, because they need the experience.
Yes,
100%, 100%. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So no, just
But
just a thought.
I'm not really they would rather do it with an experienced film person than me, who's just taught myself with a little bit of, well, with quite a lot of input from my mentor.
Gotcha. No,
But
it's just a thought. Like
on
these
the
people.
biological side,
Yeah.
I have got experience. I could teach them on the biological
No,
side.
but it's more about like just these people. These kids are in university. They're like they know storytelling, and they're young and eager, and they need experience. So
Yes. No,
and they
that's a
probably know
good.
that they probably know Final Cut Pro. Like back of their hand too, right? They've been doing it since they were 10 years old.
Yes. Yeah. Whereas me, I had to come to it for 70 or so.
I don't even know it. That's the one thing I don't know about filmmaking is editing. So, but
Oh, you don't do editing. That's where you collaborate.
that's why I collaborate. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, what did you think about the audience feedback that we sent you? What do you think that they had to say about your film?
Well, they were nice about it. The first one in particular, well, I found was very meaningful. I can't remember her name.
No, it's just a random audience member, but basically, but it seems like people were taken by your film. That's basically what the
Oh, they
most,
were, yes.
yeah.
No, I thought so, yeah. I enjoyed it.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I think that, and you're editing your other one, your fifth installment right now,
yes, yeah. I
and
haven't got very
then
far, but maybe you're right. I should try and get some assistance. I've had assistance in a way, with the editing here because there's a Mongolian woman who's been who helped me with the subtitles, and she also helped with some of the advising on the shooting. She was very interested in that.
yeah. So yeah, you've done a feature film. This is a full-fledged feature film, and it's impressive. It's like it's very interesting, and you're like that first person narrative is a good. It's a really great way to do it because it's like, especially because you're just kind of like you are the eyes. We're literally watching you watch the birds, right? And
Yeah,
and you talk about it, and it works because
yeah,
I think that we all see birds every day, and we were like fascinated by the nuance of how these species. This is what you're telling. You're telling the nuance of how these species live.
yeah. Yeah, and it was really low tech, just with an iPhone beside me. I don't, but the quality seems okay with an iPhone just beside you.
It's a
It's all,
people make iPhone films now,
yes, yeah,
so
yeah.
it's the technology is amazing. You came into filmmaking at the perfect time.
Yeah. Well, I'll carry on. And it's very nice to hear that your enthusiasm for it, and I appreciate that. And
Yeah,
on top of the audience feedback, which I had.
100%. Well, let's
How
talk
do you
again.
choose the audience feedback? How does that work? And the audience, they send in their comments on all films or some films, or you ask them for comments on
Yeah,
particular films?
not everybody sends them in, then some people send them in, and we just kind of find we don't want to repeat the comments. So basically, someone's saying
Oh,
the same thing, then we kind of find the best of the comments for you.
yeah,
So
yeah, it was good.
all right, sir. Well, let's talk again when you make your next film, or when we showcase some of your prequels. And
Oh. If
and
you're interested, I'll send you there's a YouTube channel where they all
100%,
are.
100%.
But
Send them our way.
I've got your email, haven't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I'll send you the
Let's
YouTube
talk
channel. You
soon.
can find them all there.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you very much
Thanks.